There we go. It's 9 a.m. Call the order of the meeting of the King County Finance and Budget Committee of June 25th, 2025. Could we have roll call, please?
Juby,
Juby here.
Lewis, Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Burgess, Tepe,
Tepe here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Berman,
Burma's here.
Roth,
Roth here.
Pirog. You have an in-person quorum?
Thank you very much. Do we have any remote attendance requests? I know that Ms. Lewis is a doctor's appointment. Try to be here shortly. Other than that, we're all right. Approval of the minutes from May 20th and May 28th. We have a motion to approve.
Tepe requests unanimous consent.
Everybody agree? It will be accepted by unanimous consent. May 20th, 28th. Public comments. Janine Mayer. Sorry for speaking.
Ray Mavis.
Good morning. I'm here today because I care deeply about the direction that our county is heading. As someone who spent decades watching the community grow and change, I'm increasingly concerned by the choices being made and priorities being ignored. We're facing a $30 million deficit on a $140 million budget. This isn't just a financial imbalance. It's a symptom of something deeper. Our priorities are off. We're growing government, spending beyond our means, and ignoring the foundation of sound leadership. This board had a chance a few weeks ago to bring millions of dollars back to the county by voting not to extend the Elgin TIF district for another 12 years. That one decision could have returned over $4 million to the county, money that it could have helped address our growing deficit and supported critical services. But instead, the board chose to let those funds continue flowing to developers, even as we face hard choices and budget strain. Just weeks ago, Governor Pritzker stood before the U.S. Congress defending Illinois sanctuary policies, while here at home we struggle to fund law enforcement and protect public safety. His state-level reforms have tied the hands of police and pushed the burden onto counties like ours. Also, Illinois remains the most permissive abortion state in the Midwest, even allowing out-of-state minors to get abortions here without parental consent. There are active efforts in Springfield to decriminalize prostitution, and Governor Pritzker has publicly said he's open to legislation that would legalize physician-assisted suicide. These are not fringe proposals. They're serious policy directions that can affect how we value life, protect the vulnerable, and define justice in our state. It's hard to stay focused on what truly matters: fiscal responsibility, public safety, and moral clarity, when local leadership continues to echo the very policies that are failing us. Madam Chair has repeatedly aligned with Governor Pritzker's agenda, even when those policies burden our county and compromise our values. When leadership becomes more about politics than people, we all suffer. True leadership means having the courage to speak, having the courage to break the party line when it's hurting people you serve. I'm here to ask something deeper. Have we lost our grounding? Have we lost our soul? There must be people in this room who still have a conscience. Maybe it's been dulled over time by pressure, by politics, by silence, but I know it's still there. You say you care. Many in this room say this often, but I ask with all sincerity, do you care enough to act, to protect what's right, to push back when the policies are wrong? We cannot keep saying we care about people while supporting policies that harm the vulnerable, weaken families, and violate our conscience. That's not compassion, that's collapse. When you stop defending life, when you stop protecting innocence, when you treat truth as negotiable, you lose the very core of what it means to lead, to serve, to be human. This isn't just about King County's budget, it's about who we are. What kind of leaders do we want? Because if we want to recover financially, we must recover morally. If we want to restore trust, we must restore truth. Because without that, we may balance the books, but we'll be bankrupt where it matters most. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Anderson.
My apologies. Good morning, Brian Anderson, Sugar Grove. I think this is the fifth finance meeting since the election. I think there was 2 special meetings in between. I'm hoping today that when there's discussion among the board, we'll get some positive information about balancing the budget. At the last county board meeting, at the last executive meeting, I challenged the entire 24 board members, and I'm going to repeat it here in this group, to lead by example. We're counting on all departments across Kane County to look at their budget, to look at their department, to look at their people, to look at compensation, to look at hiring. And that starts with the 24 board members. So you knew during a budget crisis, there should never have been a pay increase. I'm asking this group, this body, to put that on your plan to rescind, remove, suspend your pay increase. We know that it is nothing more than a gesture, but it does save the county about $125,000. Those pennies do add up. One of the things that struck me recently, and I love Kathy Hopkinson when she comes up and gives data, but the one person that, and it may be me, so if I stand corrected, that's fine. In the corporate world that I grew up in for 30 years, you usually have the VP of HR talking about what we're doing with the departments, what happens with staffing flow, with staffing matrix. And I think we've got a VP of HR. She's been here almost 5 years. I'd love to see her get up and share to not only the finance, the executive, and the full county board on what's going on behind the scenes. We have to be accountable. I'm hearing that we are supposed to have a hiring freeze, but there are departments throughout the county that you know what, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. That's where HR comes in and says, wait a second, can't do that. So I'd like to see that be addressed. I'd also like to know how the ad hoc committee is going. I think there was one scheduled and it was suspended. And then lastly, I say this with great reverence, great humility. I actually even see the pain this morning. Dale Berman, thank you for 30 years of service. It goes without question. 30 years is a long time. Thank you for your service. But for the better of the finance committee and the board, you need to spend time with your wife, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and I'm calling for your resignation today. It's prudent. I can tell you, Brian Anderson, if I was in your seat, I'd be gone enjoying whatever days and time I have left with my family, and I'm not really going to be concerned what's going on. But I've heard it from both sides of the aisle. Your health is waning. Please make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Denise Theobald.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Denise, and I'm a citizen here in Kane County. And I'm here to say I am tired. I'm really tired of partisan politics, not just on the federal level, but here locally and on this board. And today I'm specifically calling you out, Mr. Lawson, because what we've seen and heard from you is nothing short of a blame game, an organized attempt to sabotage and throw sand in the gears of this board. You've done this for years as the county board chair and now as the treasurer. I have limited time, so only a couple examples here. You led a ring called Kane County Speaks, a far-right political group to physically hand out thousands of flyers to people paying their bills here in person. This flyer contained misleading and false information. It specifically attacked the Democratic board and Madam Chair Corrine Perogue, stating incompetence, mismanagement, wasteful spending, and the reason people's tax bills were increasing. Pretty darn misleading and disingenuous, since there has been no tax increase and only 4% of our tax goes to the board, and that pays for our crucial services, most notably our police and public safety. You also led a disinformation campaign against the 75 cents on $100 retail tax referendum. It failed. And it failed because you misrepresented numbers at the town halls, passed out thousands of flyers, and you should have been the backer of this wonderful solution, this referendum, because it made sense. Instead, we're facing a budget downfall. And what's most bothersome, to me at least, is that your disinformation campaigns also always seem to be aimed at the most vulnerable, playing into people's fears. Your slogan, had enough of taxes? Here's the blame. Pushing the narrative that the board is to be solely to blame and the enemy and the reason that we have a gap for the 2026 budget. You played on people's emotions and pushed the narrative that it'll only hurt lower income folks, when actually the tax referendum would have gotten money from the more affluent population. My point here is when you're politically motivated, as you are, Mr. Lawson, you'll do anything to make your opponents look bad. You seem to forget that you work for the citizens of Kane County. We expect you to work harder to better our community, not to destroy it. We don't want a DOGE solution. But here we are, when services are cut and jobs are eliminated, you can gleefully spout the narrative that it's all the board's fault. Congratulations. The problem is that none of this helps our community. It feeds your political narrative. You can't better your community without properly investing in it. There were solutions and you pushed against it. You're like a homeowner who doesn't want to pay for upkeep of their home. We don't want that for our community. We want public service that serve the entire community. We don't want performant partisan figureheads whose only goal is to gain back power and political control.
Thank you, Denise. Our next speaker is Yvonne Dinwiddle.
Thank you. We, the people of Kane County, elected you to work for us. It behooves you to understand TIFs, tax increment financing districts, how many there are in Kane County, how many are proposed, the total amount of money you are getting from the frozen values, and the difference between what you are losing in tax revenue due to the TIF increment. A line item in the budget and financial statements is crucial to the understanding. You need to understand the restrictions of TIF expenditures, and so you would need to know exactly how much money is dedicated for TIFs in each TIF district. The numbers are not small. It's in the millions of dollars annually. I've asked the question of numerous people in Kane County and in TIF districts. The answers have been, I don't know, or we don't have that information. One Kane County board member told me, we don't have TIFs in Kane County. The fact is, you really must know, and you must fully understand TIFs before you approve them. It's our tax dollars you're diverting from our schools, our parks, Kane County, and other taxing bodies. It's your responsibility to ensure our money is spent properly and wisely. I'd be happy to answer questions. I'd be happy to meet with you separately if you want to, and give you the benefit of my 40-some years of experience with studying TIFs. Thank you.
I have no one else signed up to speak. Is there anyone else to speak? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thanks for, yeah. My thoughts aren't real organized here, but, I just want to say,
Real quickly, could you state your name?
oh, my name Ginger Romano. Live here in the county. I'm kind of curious. I come to these meetings. I actually do some homework. I look at the agendas, and I actually even look at all the 500 pages of the stuff in the finance thing. And I just kind of wonder if everybody else here does that. I know it's a lot to take a look at and actually even study it to see what exactly you're spending your money on. And so there's some other things like 5-hour work weeks being considered full-time, and then they get full-time benefits for all that. I thought I saw somewhere it was 17% that the county gets to pay, 84% now of people's medical benefits, which is really nice. Most people in the private, business areas don't get that. And some of us don't even, we have to pay our own health care. So it's kind of a nice thing. I tell people to come here to work instead of, a regular job. So, and some people work 20 hours, they work 20-hour weeks and they get paid $50,000 a year. I kind of seen that in some of the payroll stuff. There seems to be lots of pork, such as something like a workforce development that's newly created. Some of those are paid positions, and it's like, why is the county responsible for people working? I don't understand that. And plus I see buses that are empty and even providing transportation for people that, well, I guess it's okay, but going to court, for instance, that it's not really the county's job to be doing something like that. I guess it's their problem as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, and there's a new economic development corporation that was created through ARPA. People that are going to be paying things, we're probably going to end up funding that too. And to be honest, I think Chris is doing a great job. Chris Lawson, as treasurer, he's been doing, as far as investing our funds and whatever we do have. I mean, just in this one thing here, I saw he, I think, was able to acquire over $1 million in interest. I don't know. I could probably go on, but that's about all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Treasurer's report, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and public. We've submitted our written report 7-8 days ago. I'm going to have an abbreviated verbal report today, just about 5 items to point out, because we have a special guest who's come from upstate New York. I'll introduce him in a moment. Blair, could you put up page 6? So the interest income in the detail, bottom right-hand number on that chart, and it's we'll have a picture on page 7, but it's $1.85 million. Interesting that that's in 1 month. That is more than 2 years ago what was in the entire annual budget in this month's income. Could you put up page 7? So this is in picture form, 1.85 million, the projected, the promised, and the actual performance. Now, it's important to note that the yellow portion of this chart is money that's collected on behalf of the different taxing agencies and then returned within about 10 days of our receiving it. We have certain distributions. In this case, this month, it's $364,000 of that 1.85 million goes back. So we can't count on all of it. Could you put up page 8? This is Jeannie Livka in our office favorite chart. What this shows is that in the last 2.5 years, we've collected $47 million more. There was a very important spreadsheet that I saw from accounting. Actually, I think I saw 2 that may help the board use the interest income in balancing the budget. Blair, would you put up page 11? I just like to point out on this chart, on page 11, there is an unrealized, that means it hasn't been realized, loss. And I'd just like to point it out, number one, it's about $900,000 on bonds that we've purchased at a certain interest rate, we don't have to worry about that because we generally hold our bonds to maturity. So, interest rates go up and down. There's an accrual evaluation, an accrual, not a cash. We continue to get the interest rate that's been promised. We bought at a high yield, but it's possible for interest rates can fluctuate higher. As that line shows, it's about 5.6% interest and a 98.5 discount. So, and then page 19, final slide for this portion of the presentation. So on page 19, it is a comparison between this year, May, and last year, May. I just wanted to make an observation on this. It'd be natural to ask the question, well, why do we have more interest? Why do we have more in the bank this year than last year? There have been a lot of reports about the problems, as far as deficits. Basically, when I take a look at those numbers, because we're collecting more in property taxes, it's 1.6 billion versus 1.5 billion last year. We collect more, it hits the bank, but we also then are going to be distributing it. So it rises faster, but it's also going to go down faster as we make those distributions. Just wanted to point it out. And then Blair, if you would put up slide 24, I'd like to do the introduction. Okay, as it says, Ronald Reagan's one of his favorite expressions, there's no limit to the amount of good that can be done if you don't care who gets the credit. The first group that I would like to thank is naturally our staff. The smooth operation of the Treasurer's Office comes from their very positive, constructive attitude. Very much appreciate the support of the board members for making it possible with the appropriation that's given. And we take that very seriously. Next slide. I'll be right back. Okay, I'd like to introduce Joe Rulison. Joe Rulison is the founder and executive chairman of 3+1. Joe founded this this organization that provides data-driven liquidity tools. In the Treasury function, safety of your money is the most important. Liquidity, knowing how much we have to spend, and funding different expenses, very important. And then finally, the highest return on investment within liquidity and safety. And he provides data-driven liquidity tools to county governments, universities, and banks. He has decades of leadership roles at Prudential Bache, Bank of America, and JP Morgan. He is literally a banker's banker. Basically, what they do is Joe is a successful entrepreneur in the fintech field or the financial technology field. He created MuniFlow, which was sold to Bank of America for a national rollout, 3+1 and CashVest, where one of the mottos is clarity of data gives you confidence in making decisions. So if you know what's happening, you can make better decisions, which definitely is shown consistently. Also, as part of 3+1, you may remember that when we were going through the decision on the operating bank, we had RFP Prep, which was one of the tools that Joe and his team produced where it produced, in the end, the decision supported by the board was $650,000 more of interest income and lower expenses. His firm is highly recommended by NACO, National Association of County Organizations. It's a very hard thing to do. In just one idea last week of making sure that we check the banker's work, we save $9,000 to $10,000 on the one. Joe has received honorary doctorate from St. John Fisher University, Lifetime Achievement Award from the Rochester Business Journal. And most recently in 2025, he's been identified, his team and his work has been identified as one of the top 30 companies in the country by the Silicon Valley Review. So I see Joe as my insurance policy. In my accounting practice, in Sarah's accounting practice, my insurance agent was Bill Leonard. He took good care of our family, our business, and our clients. In this case, Joe Rulison is the insurance policy from Overlooking Opportunities. They have the sharpest pencils and they're the nicest people. They have lots of clients nationwide. They are the only one of their kind in the country. They are so confident of their the productivity of their services that you may recall in the RFP that when they were selected, that if they did not produce savings, they don't want our money. And so they have many times over paid for the fee that our taxpayers pay for them. So it's based on, next slide. And actually, these are some of the, $3 billion more in interest income for their clients. If you go to the next slide. Lots of partners, lots of folks using the services. Next slide. So again, the importance of having accurate data. Next slide. This is the recognition most recently, and then the final slide, page 27, top 30. Oh, actually, data, not opinions. And that is it. With that, I would like to introduce to the board Joe Rulison.
Thank you so much to Treasurer Lawson and to this board to be here today. First of all, what a beautiful area. And coming from upstate New York, believe it or not, we don't have snow at this time of year. We tend to have quite a bit of snow, and it was a little bit warm there. And I have to say, we probably were about the same here yesterday. But on behalf of 3+1 and also the National Association of Counties, it's important to know there's over 89,000 public entities throughout the United States. Of that, there are 3,244 counties. Of that, there's only one CashFest national leader a year out of all of them. And I'm so proud to say this year is your Treasurer Lawson as our National Leadership Awardee. So thrilled. What led us to this? First of all, to have a public official that had the legislative, executive, financial background. And at this stage of such a long career, to still be innovative with new solutions that has led, just imagine, $47 million of interest earned on your taxpayer dollars. Every single one of you. Your taxpayer dollars are earning the highest in the country of any public entity that exists today. That's 40, it's so well put. Judge Moore from Boone County, Kentucky says, you know, Joe, for every dollar we earn, that's one less taxpayer dollar needed to pay for county services. $47 million plus less that you have to take from the taxpayers to cover the services, and in some cases, maybe to fill budget gap, maybe to do a capital project, maybe to do, we just had an entity that just did a skating park because of the money that was made. What's interesting on top of that, last year alone, you made an additional $4 million on interest earnings than what was projected. And you outpaced the market that was down in interest rates by 8%. You were 28% above, unheard of. And that's because of the fiduciary responsibility of Treasurer Lawson and your staff. This is absolutely the highest standard. What it takes to get this award is not easy to receive. It goes through incredible due diligence, incredible research, and it is something that creates and shows the highest standards throughout the country. And all I can say to the treasurer, please, if you can take and just clone yourself for every county throughout the country, we need this. Just imagine, we just topped $3.5 billion since we started 3+1 that we have created that would never have existed had it not been for the data, for the technology and innovation that we've created. And is this that's going right back to the local communities, going right back to the taxpayers. And that's because every single dollar matters. Every single dollar has value. And you're able to optimize that on top of it while being safe. You're working with the best of financial institutions. And how do we know? Because you did an RFP. The treasurer went out and did an RFP. And from that has saved you over $600,000. Well, on top of that, earning the highest in terms of benchmarking in the country on your dollars. That is an accomplishment that is absolutely outstanding. And Treasurer Lawson, I want to present to you, if you please come up, an award there's only to one individual a year, a public finance official, that I have to say, you are the best, and please use this standard to educate others throughout the county and through the country. And from the National Association of Counties as well, this is an absolute incredible accomplishment. Thank you. Everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And
Can you swing around and just get one?
Oh,
John, you look good, right? Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much. And on behalf of 3+1, we're thrilled to work with you all, and we'll continue to bring this kind of return to you over the course of time. We're pure data, pure innovation, and we want to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
Yeah.
Does that take sense? Our next item is auditor's report. Swigman. We have a stand in this morning.
Good morning, board members. My name is Porfirio Lara, staff auditor. I'm here on behalf of Penny Wegman, the King County auditor. This is my first time presenting, so please bear with me. The audit report is on file and attached. If there's any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. If I can't answer the question, I'll have the auditor respond upon her return. If there's no questions, can you please go to page 261? I'll present you guys the fleet audit presentation. Okay, slide 2, yep. So the whole purpose of this audit is to take a look at the county's fleet management practices. Are we recording properly our fleet management software? Do our systems and reports reflect the actual vehicles we have in service? are we actually following the practices set forth in the Kane County Code, Section 2-82, purchase, replacement, and disposal of vehicles? Next slide, please. In order to start off this audit, we needed the reports and systems the departments had in order to start cross-referencing with each other and notate any discrepancies and or errors. The reports we acquired are the following: the New World ERP Estimation Report dated 11/30/2024 from the Finance Department, year 2023 and 2024 vehicle auction reports from the Finance Department, vehicle insurance list dated 7/25/2024 from the Human Resource Department. And also we took a look at the Fleetman Vehicle Management Inventory System, a software that the Kane County uses in order to manage fleet inventory. Next slide, please. So first, we use the New World ERP Asset Listing Report as a baseline, using the departmental vehicle list, the vehicle auction list, and the human resource vehicle insurance list as assumed correct and accurate reports. On doing so, we encountered 97 errors within the New World ERP Asset Listing Report. Next slide. And this is what the 97 errors entail. The most common one was the VIN number was either duplicated or incorrect. And most of that is because of the data entry. The person who was doing that data entry was confusing themselves with the zeros and O's and stuff like that. Next slide, please. Now we're using each department's vehicle list as a baseline, which resulted with errors within the human resource vehicle insurance list. The human resource utilizes this list to acquire vehicle insurance policies county-wide. Some of the inaccuracies include, but not limited to, the VIN number, license plate number, and mileage. Next slide, please. In total, there were 53 errors within the human resource vehicle list, insurance list. I also want to take a note that even though it is a lot of errors in this list, human resource uses a blanket insurance, which minimizes the risk, even though some of the vehicles were incorrectly listed. Next slide, please. Next, we took a look at the Fleetman Vehicle Management Inventory System. And the conclusion of that is this system was introduced by the Information Technology Department, was designed to provide real-time vehicle reporting for purposes of insurance coverage, budgeting, community review, and vehicle replacements. Unfortunately, the Department of Building Management has discontinued the system, which resulted in lack of information for the Kane County fleet. Next slide, please. So here are what we're recommending to the Finance Department. Number one, Kane County should consider establishing a new common database system for vehicle inventory. Number two, Kane County should consider creating a comprehensive policy to be developed at the county level to establish specific procedures with clear responsibilities for each department for maintaining the county-wide vehicle inventory using the new database system. Next slide. The third recommendation is in order to keep the New World ERP asset listing up to date going forward until a new policy and a different database system is established, the Finance Department should correct the current errors. Our office provided them a report of vehicles that require corrections and the related errors found. Next slide. The recommendation number 4, Kane County personnel who enter fleet data should receive updated training. This training will help to reduce the occurrence of future mistakes when entering fleet data to the newly established database system. Next slide. Due to the length of the response from the Finance Department, we attached a full response to the audit report. Any questions regarding to that response, you can direct them to Kathleen the Executive Director of Finance Department. Next slide. The Auditor's Office would like to express our appreciation to each department in King County and the Finance Department for the cooperation provided during this audit. If you guys have any questions, you can contact our office regarding this report. But yep, that's it.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Young man, I don't know your name, but I take enormous offense when I chair a Human Services Committee and somebody comes here and gives a report and says there is a shit ton of errors. Okay? I mean, when did the meeting occur that said we have a variance between two different reporting systems? And did your director speak with the other directors to try and come up with this? I'm not upset with you. I don't know you from Adam. I am upset with the way this process just went through. Somebody just gave a report saying error, error, error. If you have two computer systems that don't speak the same language, I would expect that to be a meeting that we try and get these two systems to work together, not come here and make an accusation like this that tries to make people look bad. First I've seen it, not real happy with this. I'm expecting a very reasonable explanation here. And if this is a process that we need to smooth out, we should be taking those actions. But using the word error says somebody made a mistake. And I don't believe that that's the case here. I'm sorry, Mr. Berman.
Yes, thank you. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask, who ordered this study?
Or what?
Who ordered this study?
I believe I don't have the answer to that question, so I'll ask Penny upon her return. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate you being here. And as you walk out, I may expect to see bus tire marks on your back. Because I think somebody threw you under the bus, maybe to be here. Because I've got questions too, like this. And, it would be helpful if the leader of your department could come and maybe before the next meeting, explain some of these things, because I'm looking like page 265 shows 97 errors. And then on page 267, there's only 53 of them left, but nobody says what happened to the other ones. I mean, there's inference there, but again, it's not on you. It's unfair to ask you to come here, I think, and try and handle this, but somebody needs to, and it needs to be done pretty quick because there's a whole lot of fingers that have been pointed in different places. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Anything else? Oh, Ms. Bates.
Yeah. Not gonna chop off your head. You're the messenger, but there's a message that has to be fixed here.
All right, thank you very much. Oh. Ms. Wiggum. Please go ahead.
Ms. Wegman, go ahead.
So I apologize for not being there. I am at a conference, but I can certainly attempt to address any questions that you may have regarding the audit. Unfortunately, I don't have much information on what has already been discussed, but I can certainly address any questions that are there.
I would leave that between department heads and then ask for a recap.
Good idea.
This is nothing that we should be doing in a meeting like this. This should be offline.
Any other comments? Thank you, Penny. Moving on. We have a resolution approving the May 2025 claims paid of $7,345,057.98. Over here first. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second?
Sanchez second.
Sanchez. Question? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Thank you very much. Item 8, Finance Director's Report. Ms. Hopkinson.
Hello. I'll just say a couple things about the fleet audit. If, we did provide a response. I don't know if, that copy of that response was handed out or not, but, I think, as a former auditor, I think all audits bring some good information. On the errors, I think part of the issue is that the finance department tracks assets for one purpose, which is capitalizing assets. The HR department tracks assets for insurance. So and then the offices that have vehicles, a lot of vehicles, they track their assets for fuel usage and maintenance. So there's different purposes why offices, the types of information that they track. The finance department asset management system is not an online real-time system. We update it once a year. I believe the HR department, I don't want to speak, but they kind of do a refresh periodically. So neither of those are like online real-time systems where you can find out today. And as far as like VIN numbers, in our finance asset management, we don't even put the whole VIN number in because we don't need it for our purposes. We just put like the last 5 digits. But I think this audit was great from the standpoint of there are efficiencies that I think that we're looking into now. We're looking into can we merge 2 systems together and use more of New World capabilities that we aren't using. So just wanted to add that comment on the fleet audit. And yeah, there is a whole response that we wrote up from the finance department. I don't know if that was part of your packet. Okay, now financial information. I have a lot to talk about today, a lot of financial data. Couple things I want to highlight. If we want to go to the page, it's page 6 of this slide deck. So it would be that one. Yes. Couple things want to point out in terms of revenue. For fiscal 25 to date, local use tax revenue is down both from budget and prior year. As I've explained in a couple previous meetings, the number of transactions that are taxed changed as of January 1st, 2025. So the county is no longer getting as much tax revenue as we expected. State income tax revenue is a little higher than budget right now. I will say state income tax revenue doesn't come in evenly every month. It fluctuates a lot each month. And personal property replacement tax revenue is down from last year, but that is also a type of revenue that comes in, it doesn't come in every month, and it comes in not similar amounts every month. So it fluctuates. So it's hard to tell until the end of the year where we stand on that. Next page. So these are just the graphs that we have every month that show the trends in our tax revenues. So the red and the blue lines are the sales tax and the RTA sales tax. And one thing I wanted to point out about the grocery tax, because there's a lot of discussion about the grocery tax being eliminated January 1st, 2026. That is only being eliminated on the state sales tax. It is not being eliminated on the RTA sales tax. Found that out last week and wanted to point that out to you. So again, the grocery tax is being eliminated on the state sales tax, but the RTA sales tax will still tax groceries. So you can see just over time, sales tax revenue goes up. The lower chart is our state motor fuel tax revenue, which is in the green. We get a share of the overall state motor fuel tax revenue. And then the blue line is the county motor fuel tax revenue. And both have gone slightly up over time. Both of those taxes are tied to inflation. So the state adjusts both of those, and that's on the next page. The state adjusts both of those, the state motor fuel tax and the county motor fuel tax every July. So on July 1st, 2025, the state motor fuel tax rate is going to increase 2.82%, which an estimate that I estimate that it would bring in an additional 400,000 in additional state motor fuel tax revenue. And then also on July 1st, the local county motor fuel tax rate will increase by 2.82%, which translating that into cents per gallon, that would be an increase from 4.9 to 5 cents per gallon. Estimating that that could bring in an additional 300,000 to the county. And now I'm going to jump to, if you can go to page 15 of the slide deck, not the, yeah. Next page. So every month I put this chart in here. This is a historical trend of salaries only, not benefits, just salaries by department. This is all funds across the county. And so you can see that 2024 salaries across the county were $101 million. When I prepared this, we have been through 12 and a half payroll periods. There's 26. So we're at 51 million this year. So the forecast for this year is 106 million in salaries by department. Go to page 17. I just wanted to highlight that our 2025 county budget book received the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. We were notified 2 weeks ago. This is sort of our new redone budget with everything in alphabetical order. Now I'm going to go to page, what looks like the PowerPoint presentation. It says Finance Committee meeting June 25th. Should be about 6 pages ahead here. Yes. Okay, next page. This slide was presented in April. It's updated as of June 19th. And I'm putting dates on things because you run a report on June 16th and things are different already on June 19th. So on Wednesday, June 19th, we received the first part of the property tax revenue into the general fund. And so that was $17 million of an expected 35 million for the year that will go into the general fund. So as of June 19th, the balance in the general fund, general account, which is the dark green, and the light green, which is the general fund special reserve account, which are essentially the unrestricted monies that are available to the county, are just about 55, 57-ish $1 million. We expect to end the fiscal year at just about 60 million in available fund balance. I will point out that the general fund general account, which is the dark green, prior to this first transfer of property tax revenue, was running at $19 million. And I was watching it every day. Because at next year at this time, before we get property tax revenue, we may be in a situation where we don't even have 19 million in that general fund, general account, which is the portion of the general fund that essentially is the budget. The special reserve is just reserve money sitting there. There's really no budget for that except for interest income. So I am concerned that next year at this time, we essentially would have to be transferring money from the special reserve into the general account before that property tax revenue comes in. Next slide is a slide that I just emailed to Blair this morning. Trying to remember all of the requests for information. So this is just a snapshot of the general fund, general account for 23, 24, and 25, budget to actual, and 23 and 24, those fiscal years are over essentially. So on the expense side, essentially we spend our general fund, general account budget. The revenues, I want to point out a couple of important things about the revenues. And I'll talk about this on a later slide too. There's what I call routine revenues, charges for services, fines, grants, etc., property taxes, things that come in year after year. And then there's transfers. If you look at fiscal 23, why is revenue higher than expenses? Because we transferred $17 million. Most of that was COVID reserve money into the general fund. And we don't have that type of money long-term. 24, fiscal 24, we closed out a couple of COVID era funds, which I'll highlight in a second here, like the FEMA fund and the mass vaccination fund. And there was leftover monies in those funds, which were originally funded by money from the general fund. So when we closed out those funds, we were able to send the money back to the general fund. So those are great when you have that type of a situation where you can transfer money from another fund, but it's not something that you can count on every year. So just wanted to point that out when you're looking at this type of information. Okay, now back to the regular slide deck. So the next few pieces of information, it's a lot of data. I'm just going to highlight some things, and I am presenting the information sometimes in two different ways, by department and by fund, because I think there's things that can be learned both ways. So this first chart is general fund, general account revenue for 23 actual, 24 actual, 25 amended budget, and 25 actual. So if you flip to the next page, I'm sorry, to the end of this. So about 2 pages, 2 more pages, 1 more page, 1 more. Okay, so this is where the totals are. So there's a grand total of all the revenue in those years. When you take out the one-time transfers, the revenue is pretty similar. It's pretty flat from year to year. So 108 million in 23, 109 in 24, 110 in 2025. Right now for 2026, we're looking at around 112. So the revenue coming into the general fund is pretty flat unless we transfer money from some other fund into the general fund. The next set of information, next slide, please, is cash balances by fund. And this report was prepared on June 16th. So this was prior to the property tax, 3 days before the property tax revenue coming into the general fund. And this information is arranged by what the purpose of the fund is. Is it a restricted fund? Is it a restricted special revenue fund? Or is it unrestricted money? By nature, if money is in the special revenue fund, it's typically restricted by somebody, either a federal rule, a state rule, or a county board rule. So I classified all of these cash balances by fund type. So the first set, we've got money in debt service funds. Those monies are restricted for debt. Then we have funds that are managed by elected officials. You could say that even some of these funds have dual restrictions. Not only are they managed by elected officials, but a lot of these are also restricted by state statute. For example, some of the automation funds and funds like that are restricted by state statute. Then there's just a couple funds that have been closed. Then we have funds that have grant revenues in them, and we can't use that money because it can only be used for those grant purposes. Next page. And then we have funds that are restricted for particular purposes. Again, some of these are also restricted by state statute, where the money can only be used for specific things. Next page. Then we have a few more funds that are restricted for purpose. Reserves for liability. So we have a health insurance fund, which holds all the money that we use to pay our health and dental claims. It has $11 million in it as of June 16th. But we also purposely want to maintain a reserve in that fund for health and dental claims. Then we have funds that are restricted by tax levies. A lot of these are these special service areas, all the ones with the 4-digit accounts. All that money is going for it's all restricted that goes for those areas. I have the county health department under various because it has property tax revenue, it has fees, and it has grants. So it has a multitude of different reasons why the money is restricted. So then the next set I have is unrestricted / available. Either it's money that is unrestricted or could be considered available due to policies or some other reason. So we have the Grand Victoria Casino Fund, which has $12 million in it as of June 16th. It's restricted. The casino money has to be used for development, environment, or education. But a lot of county offices receive internal transfers every year from the Grand Victoria Casino funds. We have reserves for liability. Again, we have an insurance liability, which is for our county, our general liability, our IMRF, which is for pension payments for our employees that are funded out of the general fund, our FICA Social Security Fund, which is what we use to pay payroll taxes. And we have an enterprise surcharge fund, which by county policy has to maintain a minimum cash balance of 3 million, but we have almost 6 million. This money is the reason why we have a county policy to maintain at least 3 million is the enterprise surcharge fund is related to the landfills that the county used to manage that are now managed externally, and money was set aside for liability purposes. We have the RTA sales tax funds, the public safety sales tax, the judicial technology sales tax, and the transportation sales tax funds, as well as the general fund. Those are the 4 funds that receive RTA sales tax revenue. That distribution or allocation of the RTA sales tax revenue is done by the county board. It's a financial policy. The state requirement is that it has to be used for transportation or public safety, but the county board determines the allocation. And then sort of true unrestricted is our general fund general account, the general fund special reserve, capital projects fund, which is essentially a fund that is funded by our general fund. And then there's a permanent fund called the working cash fund, which really is never touched. It's a statutory type fund. We don't really do anything with it. We don't spend from it. It earns some interest. So that is a highlight of all the cash balances of all the funds. So the next set of information, so the next slide, I have a whole bunch of salary information. So the first look is salaries budget to actual by department, and then I have it by fund. So I'll just go through the column heading. So the first column is the 25 amended budget. The next column is actual to date. The third column, fiscal 25 expected, is just a calculated number based on the number of payrolls. Budgeted what should the salary expenses have been to date. And then the last column is the difference between expected to actual. So if the expected is higher than actual, then there would be a positive number. There's a negative number. It's the salaries are higher than expected. So that's the first slice of information. And then the next set is about 5 pages up. The header says salaries budget to actual by fund. So it's the same information except by fund and then department, which again, I think is useful when you're looking at things. So just looking at the general fund, the total salaries for the 25 budget that are budgeted are essentially 88 million. We've spent 43.4 to date. Expected would be 45. The difference is 2 million. I will point out though, that the largest difference there is the sheriff. But the sheriff's contract was just adopted at county board last week, and that's going to add $500,000 to the general fund this year. So part of that $1 million difference, it'll essentially drop because we have to go back and pay retro back to 12/1/2024. So that will change. So again, just a different slice of the same information. And then if you can move forward a few pages to the interest earned. So this is interest earned by fund, by type, by fund. So following the same categories that was used for the cash balances in each fund. So same categories, same description. So going back to fiscal 21, what was the interest earned? What is fiscal 25 budgeted, and what is fiscal 26 projected, which was based on the recommendation from the treasurer that we budget 10 million for 2026. So if we go to the end of this, okay, right there, thank you. Wanted to point out a few things because you may scratch your head. How can you have negative revenue? At the end of each fiscal year, the county must record investments at market value. The easiest way to think about this is if you're a business and you've got to close your doors, and it's the end of your business and you're selling everything, you would sell your investments for what the market is going to bring you today. So we are required for accounting purposes to do the same thing. At the end of the year, we have to mark to market. So in those years, 21 and 22, a lot of our investments were, the market value was lower than, or the cost was lower than market. And for accounting purposes, the way that you book that difference is you book it to your interest earned. So it looks like we had negative interest earned which in effect is basically booking our losses. And we have been recovering over the years. And this is interest earned by fund. I will point out one interesting thing because it's always a hot topic, what's available. There's a note down there. We have one very interesting fund, the Probation Services Fund. While the fee revenue in that fund, it's managed by Court Services, while the fee revenue in that fund can only be used for specific purposes. The interest by state statutes can be deposited, oh, it got cut off there, can be deposited in the general fund or any fund. So just an interesting note there. And then the last piece of information that I have is there's always a lot of questions that I get asked about employees, how many employees. So this is active employees by fund, by department. And I prepared this on June 16th and then annualized the salaries. So based on who is employed on that day, if you annualize their salaries, what would their salaries be? And this also, I have one set of information that is employees by fund, by department. And then the next set is by department, by fund. And yes, most of the employees in the county are in the general fund. There's about 1,400 employees. Almost 1,100 are in the general fund. Election workers are not included in this analysis because they're only here for such a short time. So they are excluded from this piece. And that's it.
Mr. Sturgis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kath, I've sent a decent amount of emails over the past couple of weeks regarding budgetary items and information that I'm trying to glean. And you continue to rifle back information back saying, just because you're not smart enough, Cliff, to understand what I've already provided to you, I just need to figure out how to maybe put it in a simpler format for me. But one of the items that I just sent, I had taken a breakfast meeting with Penny Wegman to go over a report that I call it like a variance report where, and I believe I did send you a copy as well. And I did send it to Mr. Leonard, Mr. Tepe, acting as the subcommittee. And I just need to have some conversation on that. We can do it offline, but the point of the report was kind of to say, if a department or an office has budgeted X amount, but hadn't used it, but the next year we budgeted the same amount or maybe slightly more, and it just continued to carry on year after year, what does that total look like and why are we doing that? And the number could be insignificant, in which case I'm okay with that. But if the number is significant, my question would be, why are we doing that? And maybe there's an absolute principle to follow for that I'm unaware of, but we're not naive. Our salaries continue to lift. Our collective bargaining agreements continue to come in, from the side and kind of add unanticipatory amounts. So I'm looking for those, and I don't even want to say low-hanging fruit because this isn't low-hanging. This is actually getting into the weeds to say, why did somebody do that and how did we do that? So if we can just hook up on that a little bit and bring it to my level, that would be so cool.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at the finance packet every month, we have, I typically don't go over it, but it's could be 100 pages of each department, each fund, each line item. There's like 5 years of history, budget to actual.
Dashboard with a pretty picture works so
Right
much
there,
better.
we have the trend lines. It's a lot of information. And, but the reason why I just wanted to show that one slide on general funds, and if you back in April, I did a presentation on sort of a overall analysis of all county funds. Pretty much personal services, which is salaries and benefits, the county spends those pretty close to budget. Where the county doesn't spend close to budget is capital. Capital across the board. I had a series of graphs on that.
To be specific then, in the report that was provided to you, was that capital or was that
Was the entire,
staffing?
that's everything.
Was
That's
everything? Okay.
It's basically, it's the same information that we have in our finance packet. We just use a different tool that pretties
Pretty is good. for
pretties
me.
it up.
I like
Um,
GUI. GUI is a word that was introduced to me
So-
years ago, and I like GUI stuff. It makes it easier for me to understand. Because when somebody provides me with a packet with 300 pages, it's easy for me to get lost. Where the GUI stuff gives me an executive overview, which is what I was elected to do, and kind of take a look at that. So if we can take just a few minutes, you and I, to maybe get into that and say, truly, Cliff, there's nothing to worry about whatsoever there, or, oh my gosh, didn't realize this and we shouldn't be doing this, or we can correct that, or, just left hand, right hand sort of thing. I
Absolutely.
would appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you. I would like a picture graph with that.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Is interface to a graphical user interface. So,
All right,
yeah, exactly.
John?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kathy. Lots of good stuff. And I was getting all excited toward the end when you said, and there's one more thing that everybody asks me about, and I was going to be the budget. And
Oh,
didn't
Just the
hear that,
status of
but
budget process.
yeah,
So
so
the-
we have 3 days left in June and I thought we were getting something. at
It's
the
a
end.
race to the finish. We are working round the clock right now to get all of the financial information in. We still have, I've got meetings all day today and tomorrow, so
Do you
I
have
have
any-
no information to share at this point,
Do you have
other
any-
than the general fund revenue estimates.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
do you have an ETA on when something? is-
Typically what we historically do is in July, we present the whole budget. Because right now what's happening is all the departments are getting all their information in, and then the finance department will go through and look at everything and, look for maybe something that was entered on the wrong line or something like that. So that takes a couple weeks. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And to Mr. Surge's comment, I think what he's talking about, GUI, is a dashboard. I know if I was trying to drive my car without the dashboard, I'd get arrested a lot for speeding probably. So if there's anything you could do to begin to give dashboards, you could look at it and go, that's good, that's bad, that's kind of, and then you dig deep, that would be awesome.
Yeah, if you look at those, the monthly, and absolutely, I will sit down with anybody because I'm all about improving reports. All of the 100 pages of committee reports that are in this packet, and then for every committee across the county, we include them. We have expected to actual. So, I mean, all those are there. Salaries, it's pretty easy because it's by pay period. Contractual services, not as easy because it's dependent on the type of contract. Is it like a one-time contract and they're not scheduled till the end of the year, or was it front-loaded, or is it evenly? Commodities is easy to look at. Capital is easy to look at too, but absolutely, I can work on condensing the information. No problem.
I think that, Madam Chair.
Oh, I would just like to follow up on Mr. Gripe's comment, and just yesterday, I was met with Kathy to talk about the board's budget, and we talked about salaries and benefits and commodities, and so the numbers are put together appropriately so that she can then mush it and put it all together. There'll be some recommendations that I'll be bringing forward probably in July to the executive committee for some suggestions to save a little bit of money, since we've been asked to reduce our budget by 15%. And if you remember last year, the county board office is one of the few offices that actually reduced its budget. And we'll take a look at some recommendations again to make that happen, but that'll be depending upon the board's approval, 24 board members' approval.
Madam Bay.
Thank you. Mavis.
Mavis Bates, you said something about the sheriff having the salaries increased, but I think I heard that the sheriff will be covering that out of his budget. So will that be on this budget or the sheriff's budget?
Right, so that on that page, it showed that the sheriff right now is under budget. But part of the reason is because the union contract didn't start on December 1st. The contract was just settled. This is for the sheriff's police. I think it was the MAP contract. So that was just approved by the county board last week or 2 weeks ago now. So once all of those increases get put through, it will add an additional essentially $500,000 to the sheriff's payroll for 2025. So since we're more or less halfway through the year, about 250,000 of that, of that $1 million difference will drop. So the sheriff really isn't $1 million under budget. It's more like 750,000 under budget right now, because we have to go back to the beginning of the year and pay retro pay, because the contract should have taken effect December 1st, 2024, but it was just settled last week. So.
Mavis, if I can, Mr. Chair. It is so complicated to get into these sometimes because it comes to us saying, well, here, I can cover it from our budget.
Yes, they did.
And here's, it's going to be a 10% this, and then a 4%, 2%, 4%, and we've got it all. But then when you get the paperwork, it says it's retro, 6 months, 2 years, and then that retro compounds, saying going forward, then you have to add that 4%, 2%, whatever. And all of a sudden the numbers, you're sitting there going, oh, excuse me, wait a minute. That's not what it looked like. And it's so difficult. I remember in my very first year here, I remember going through union negotiations and looking backwards, and there was a whole bunch of aha moments going, holy tamale, didn't consider that. And so I think that this, with the sheriff's thing, I think with what was approved, by the time it makes it to Kathy and has to go into the specific line items, there will be an aha moment or two that we should be prepared for. So, aha, exactly.
Yeah, essentially what happens, so once all of those increases are processed, those employees, one of their future, near future paychecks is going to be a lot higher, because it's going to include the difference between what they were paid from December 1st, 2024 till 2 weeks ago and what they should have been paid per the new union contract. So.
And Mavis, this then sits into all the audits for all the extras that go involved. So for example, a workers' compensation, we had a huge audit hit last year because of spikes in salaries. Well, that line item will also reflect, if we just loaded all this backwards and it's all coming through now, that is going to be and people are going to look back and say, well, didn't you build in for that? We didn't even know it was coming. What do you mean build in for it? So there is ancillary expenses that come with this that as an executive body, we should be looking at and just be, again, aha, you know.
My comment, I think our budget process is going along smoothly and on time. I think July is the time when we're going to get all the facts as to what our revenue is. We have a pretty good handle on what it is. But there's also things that we can do to change that, increase or decrease. We need to know all the facts of each department as to what they feel they need before we can make a decision as to will they get that or will they won't get. So I think that people think that we need to make decisions along the way, final decisions, but those final decisions are made when we get all the information and not before that. So we can talk about reduction in forces. We can talk about increase in taxes and all those things, but at some point in time, it all comes together and we have to vote and decide as a committee what we're gonna present to the board to approve in this. So I think we're on target. From that standpoint, I'd like Mr. Tepe to make a report on our, not ad hoc, but our working committee.
Thank you. Pete, Mr. Peters, may I share the screen?
Was this sent out to anybody?
Do I do the entire screen? All right. Good, we're up there. The little committee that we had, I don't know what we ended up calling it or how we ended up calling it, but Bill Leonard, Kathy Hopkinson, Roger Feinstock, Jamie Labrillo, and I met several times. I'll have to tell you that we got involved down into the details. But Mr. Leonard and I have decided to simplify things and just put forth the kinds of things that we feel should be looked at. But the participation, particularly by the three staff members, was really very, very beneficial for us. Okay. So if you begin to look at where we are, and here again, it's highly summarized. Our general fund in 2024 actual was 115 million and change, and we used 9 million in reserves. For 2025, the general fund revenue was 112,660,094, and $28 million in reserve use was used. So if in 2026 we were to continue, reserve use would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million plus. And, you know, everybody knows we just don't have those funds available. Okay. So we really looked at revenue, and there are some resolutions to follow today that match the suggestions that we feel should be discussed. Mr. Leonard and I are not in total agreement on all of these, but, you know, we feel that they should have been presented or should be presented to you. So one is the PTEL increase to property tax. That would give us an additional 2 million. Okay. Second is to reallocate RTA funds. This one is a bit more controversial. It will be taking these funds away from KDOT. KDOT will be modifying extensively their list of projects that are in their 5-year plan in order to get it done. They're already in the process of doing that. Okay. But it would mean an increase of 6.85 million associated with the income that we would have available for the general fund. Okay. And then today, Kathy presented a long list of funds, 3 pages long of funds that we have. It's kind of mind-boggling, all of the restrictions associated with those funds. But we spent a lot of time talking about the funds that are available. Okay. We decided that many of them are really controlled by individual departments. Many of them have certain restrictions, some of them multiple restrictions. But there was one fund that we felt a change would be appropriate, and that's the riverboat funds. And our suggestion is to use the riverboat funds internally. So if we were to do that, we currently receive about $5 million a year in riverboat funds. Historically, we've been using about 4 million of that for internal projects. So our suggestion is that we use that 1 additional million associated with the general fund. By doing that, we feel that the budgeted revenue that's available is the 112,660,000 roughly, Probably changes every day, Kathy, but, okay. 2 million from the PTEL, 6.8 million from the RTA reallocation, and 1 million from the riverboat funds. So that would give us a total of 122.5 million as our revenue projection for the general fund. Yes.
Sturgis? Mr. Tepe?
Vern, because I'm naive to this, when we look at the RTA funds, if I had to compare us against our peer group, are we out of line in the amount of money? Do other counties only give them 50% and we've been giving them 75%? Or, I mean, do we have any sort of historical data on that? Like, have we been generous and now we're not? Or are we, I mean, I think you would uniquely know that, Kathy, right?
So, there's only a certain Collar counties that get the RTA sales tax: Kane, DuPage, Lake, McHenry, and Will, right? Will. So
Sorry, I didn't see
yeah. The King County has historically allocated, it used to be higher, it used to be, I think 81 or 82% went to the transportation department. DuPage allocates 100% of their RTA sales tax revenue to their public safety operations. They don't allocate any to their transportation. But they also have the highest local motor fuel tax among all the Collar counties. They raised it to the top years ago. And with inflation, it keeps going higher. It's closing in on 10 cents. So they fund, they have way more sales tax dollars available to them for their transportation. So yeah, they fund, they use all of theirs for public safety. McHenry, I think, uses all of theirs for transportation. Lake uses theirs for transportation. Will, I'm not sure, for transportation. So I think DuPage
uses them.
Yeah.
Uses all of it or
Yeah,
a
all of it.
percentage like we, okay.
All of it. So Lake, McHenry, and Will use 100% of their RTA sales tax revenue for transportation. We currently use 75% for transportation and 25% for public safety. DuPage uses 100% for public safety.
So there's not a prescribed model. It's how, okay.
Yeah, the state statute says transportation or public safety. And so we just have in our King County, our set of King County financial policies, the board has decided over the years, and the board has changed the allocation over the years. Yep.
I guess, Mr. Berman, what would help me on this is if KDOT came forward and said, listen, this is where we're spending on our monies and what we're doing. We don't have any problem reducing by this amount, but understand this is how that's affected. You won't be able to do this intersection or that expansion, because simply saying, here's a dollar transfer, it's not going to go into this bucket, it's going to go into that bucket. I don't understand what the consequences are of that unless somebody kind of dials in what those projects might be.
KDOT, Mr. Chair. Okay. KDOT has done that. We have that list. Okay, so
When you say we have the list, you and Bill, or we?
I do, as Chair of Transportation, have the list. I don't believe it's been distributed yet, has it? Okay, so KDOT has prepared that list of projects, okay, that would be removed from the 5-year plan. Okay, they've noted on there which district those projects are in. Okay, and we'll be happy to we'll get that out and share that with the board so that you can see all of that information. So it's significant, the number of projects that would be cut with the loss of this revenue.
Yeah, Dale, if I can, it just, what were you elected to do? And this is kind of where the rubber's meeting the road. I mean, if we went around the room and said, what do you think the most important thing that the county does? Well, it's the, sheriff's department. Well, it's the health department. Well, it's the guy that plows that snow in the middle of the winter storm, or it's improving the intersection so people aren't dying there. And what we're basically saying is, can you take that list of things from Tom and Vern and Mike and say, are you willing to trade that off for the salaries in the other departments to bolster that and make sure and honestly, that's what we were elected to do. This is really where the rubber's going to meet the road. And this is the scariest decisions that I've had to make sitting here. So, but thank you.
It's our decision, it's, we talk about it being KDOT, but it's our decision is where we put the money.
Okay.
And I think in this case, we certainly get all the feedback from KDOT that we need. One thing, you might think of this though, as just same as kicking the can down the road. We're taking money that we're already getting and moving it to something. As be just like taking a reserve and doing the same thing. You could have that same attitude towards it. I don't know. Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Tepe, thank you for the presentation. You kept it short and simple and understandable, I think, for everyone, which is very important that we do that at these meetings. The one point I'd like to make about reducing the RTA sales tax from transportation by 25%, it equates to $6.8 million. However, if you remember, every year we get interest on all our monies that are in the Treasury Department. And KDOT, generally speaking, has anywhere from $80 to $100 million waiting to be paid out. It could be paid out in a year, 2 years, 3 years, some of it even longer, 8, 9, 10 years. That interest that is earned on that money goes directly to KDOT. And at a roughly, just for easy numbers, of 5% interest on $100 million, that's $5 million a year that they really don't have to account for with respect to the general fund. So that additional $5 million roughly, and I'm off a little bit on that, but that's an easy number, would really reduce this allocation that we're taking away from them of 6.8 million to about $2 million roughly. So that's why we came up with that. That's why we decided it was a reasonable consideration. And once again, this is just a suggestion. All of these things will have to be voted upon by the full board. So recommendations that we make are up for your evaluation and decision.
That's big.
Is this recommendation for 1 year or forever?
Okay.
Everything can be changed.
Yeah. Yeah, you can change
Okay.
everything every year.
I think our attitude has got to be forever.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a few more slides, by the way.
Please go.
But wait, there's more.
In regard to Mr. Leonard's comment about KDOT and the interest, he and I have a disagreement associated with that. I don't agree the fact that they get interest money on the funds that they control are funds that can replace the $6 or $7 million that we're removing from them, which is why they have updated their 5-year project. And it's we spent a lot of time on all of these detailed funds, going through them, trying to understand them. And we found it pretty difficult to try to determine what funds would be available where we could either utilize those funds or take advantage of utilizing the interest that those funds earn. Okay, so we wanted to keep it straightforward, and there's a resolution on our agenda today to do the PTEL increase and the RTA reallocation. But let me finish just a minute here. Here is the numbers that we currently have, because the budget hasn't been put in yet, but we know the 2024 actual amount, by department area. We know the 2025 amended budget. And so our suggestion is that we consider a resolution to increase the real estate taxes by the PTEL amount, a resolution to allocate 50% of the RTA to public safety instead of 25. Some agreement to use 100% of the riverboat funds. And then our final suggestion is that budgets are due within a few days. It'll take some time for finance to get them all in. So we suggest that the current committee be directed to continue to meet and come back in July with budget suggestions and recommendations for each department and each elected official. Thank you.
Yes, Julie.
I have a couple things. We've talked about the RTA shift. Like Mavis, I think that we should build in a 2-year to see what happens after it. I know I talked to Bill about it. So I will be making a floor amendment to do the 50% of the RTA to public safety for 2026 and 2027. When we talk about taking all of the riverboat funds internally, we're cutting out our community partners, which I think is pretty harsh, seeing how they're helping us. Doesn't mean I won't support that. It just means that it's something to consider. But also, when I was asked by Madam Chair a month or so ago about what my thoughts were, I suggested that we take money from capital projects, and I don't see that anywhere on here.
Just dealing with revenue.
Well, but if we take money away from capital projects, that is a revenue thing.
No, it
So-
isn't. That's an expense. Capital projects is an expense. We
Oh, I
just
see what
dealt
you're
with
saying.
revenue. So we haven't even gotten to that area
Okay,
yet.
I understand. I see what you're saying. Okay, so I only have 2 issues then. So, thank you.
Thanks.
About the riverboat, internal versus external. What I've looked at in the things that we are calling internal, some of those appear pretty external to me. I think those need to be reviewed, including some of our favorite community projects. I can't remember them exactly, but things like, is CASA one of them? But some of those are called internal, but I think those are really external also. Speaking of being harsh, but it could be reviewed. When I look, could you? Oh, I think it's harsh. I agree it's harsh, but it should be reviewed. Okay.
Well, our objective was to look at maximizing income as best we could.
Mhm.
And what's going to be harsh is the fact that every time we adjust this, we're talking about people now. We're not talking about organizations. We're talking about eliminating people. So anyway, those are our suggestions. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair Gumps.
Ms. Gumps, please.
Thank you. Mr. Tepe, if I may, maybe I missed it, but did you or anybody address, Kathy, maybe what the effect of the state removing our revenues of grocery tax, what that dollar amount is, whether it's actual or potential revenue in our unincorporated areas, and has that been addressed?
I reached out to the municipalities in the county that have put forth their own resolutions or ordinances to maintain the grocery tax, to ask them how they came up with that number, because the Illinois Department of Revenue states over and over again, it's on their website, that they cannot provide a number to anyone because of how grocery items are coded. They're not coded as grocery. They can be coded as general merchandise. They can be coded as food, depending upon the store.
Sure.
So,
Kathy, if
so
I can
basically
interrupt
nobody
you.
has a number. So I did my best as a guess.
Yeah.
It could be 60,000. It could be 1 million.
Right. So I would like to just interrupt you, if I may, Mr.
Sure.
Chair. I absolutely, that's exactly what I was looking for, because if in my brain, there's no possible way that it's $0. So we can't leave $1 on the table. That's my issue, I think. And it's not the county's fault or the municipality's fault that, you know, we don't have that anymore. I mean, it's dollars being taken from us. We didn't ask for that. So I think that needs to be a discussion. And just so you're aware, I've sent an email requesting a draft of an ordinance that would look like that. But if we have to guess at that, 60,000 is not nothing. $1 million is definitely not nothing. So I think we should have that serious conversation.
All right, Mike, sorry.
Hi, this is kind of off the wall, and I'm the last person to suggest additional taxes, but I'm just curious. We talked about DuPage putting all of their RTA money into public safety because their motor fuel tax is so high. What is a penny of motor fuel tax worth to Kane County? Can you tell us that, Kathy? Or
So state law allows the collar counties that can put in place a local motor fuel tax, which is Lake, McHenry, DuPage, Kane, and Kendall, to raise it up to 8 cents. DuPage is actually higher now because the tax is tied to inflation, so it will continue to go up even if you raise it to the max, but local officials are allowed to raise it up to 8. Ours is at 5. So the estimate is if we raised it to 8, it would probably generate $6 million for us, and then it would go higher every year. This board instituted this local motor fuel tax maybe 40 years ago and has raised it twice because it was originally at 4, then raised to 4.2, then raised to 4.4. So our board has raised it before, but not in a while.
okay, I'm not necessarily suggesting we do anything with it, but I think we need to know how it quantifies. So
About 6 million.
1 penny would be about 2 million.
Yeah, it's cents on the gallon,
On the gallon, not on
not on the
dollar.
price.
Oh, okay.
Motor fuel tax is on gallon pumped, whereas sales tax, like the state sales tax, is on the price.
Yeah, I just needed to know what that was worth. I'm not sure I
Are you
have any.
suggesting that would be one of the
I-
things we evaluate?
I think it has to be something we look at. I mean, it is a source of revenue that we have available to us, just as the property taxes, some fees and things are, but
Eddie, consider that?
I think it would be very unpopular, but
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may respond, Mike, we talked about it. Mr. Tepe and I were on opposite sides on that. I was against it because I felt everybody needs gasoline, and to increase the cost by 3 cents a gallon would affect everyone, and I don't really like that. Mr. Tepe, on the other hand, felt that it is another source of revenue that we could implement. My other thought was, if in fact the board as a whole would vote to increase the property tax and then also consider the motor fuel tax, that might be a little burdensome for everybody to absorb. So Mr. Tepe was kind enough not to put that into the consideration, although it was something that he and I talked about and the other people on the committee, but we thought at this point we wouldn't do it right now, but it is something that we can always consider.
and I was really just trying to figure just what we do get and how that matches with the way you would put all that RTA tax over to public safety. It's just a number I need to have in my head. I'm not, the prices at the pump are bad enough already. I don't think we want to add to it, but I just need to know what it was worth.
It's a good consideration, I think, but one I'm a guest.
Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sheppy, I didn't see it in your report, and maybe this is a Kathy question, but as far as the actual fund balance reserves that are unencumbered, unrestricted, and outside of that 90-day window, how much do we have currently?
That's the kind of number that you see in the 50-page detailed report that.
I'm only on page
If you go
45.
back, I don't know, Blair, if you still have,
You want,
it was the PowerPoint slide with
what,
the,
your reports are mine.
mine.
Page 355 with all the,
It was the bar graph of the balance of the general fund, general accounts. Yeah, I don't know what page that is.
Page 435.
Yeah, so the general fund has 6 different accounts. 4 are restricted and there's, before this,
Page 355.
no, it was the first page
That one?
The graph.
of the PowerPoint after the header. Yeah, all the way to the front.
The
You
90-day,
just passed it up.
the 90-day floor is
There you go.
about 35 million.
So
Is that right?
the night, typically the way that you calculate 90 days is you calculate 90 days based on your budgeted expenditures, because you would want 3 months of expenses. So the 90-day number will change as your budget changes. So as of Wednesday, June 19th, I think that was Wednesday. No, that was Thursday. We had available money in the general fund general account and the general fund special reserve account of about 55 million. The other small amounts in there, they're considered part of the general fund, but they're restricted. The cost share drainage is restricted. The economic development is restricted. So it's the green parts of those bars. So 90 days of our $140 million budget. We have more than our 90-day right now. And by the end of this fiscal year, we're expected to have about close to 60 million, which is more than our 90-day. But the trends, if you look at our trends, we have been spending down our fund balance. Since 2022, we've been budgeting to spend more money than we're taking in. So we're using our reserves to cover that difference. So if we continue to do that, and we build a budget for 2026 that uses 30 million in reserves again, like we did this year, we'll end the fiscal year with like $30 million available to us, which will be below our 90-day window. So we can't have another budget. If we want to have 90 days minimum, we can't have another budget that uses $30 million in reserves.
can you estimate how much reserves are in excess of that 90 days? That are,
So for right now, our reserves should probably be around 35 million and we've got 55 million. So we have about 20 million more. Through the end of the year, pretty close. Same thing. We'll have about 20 million more. So if we build a 2026 budget to use 30 million in reserves, yeah, we're underwater. And the even more concerning part is since property tax revenue only comes into the county in June and September, and we run low on cash in the months of, February, March, April, May, until that property tax revenue comes in. I mean, we were at $19 million before the property tax revenue came in. So next year, we may not even have that much in our general fund, general account. So we would have to dip into that general fund special reserve, which we can, the board would authorize. So.
Jared.
Thank you. Just want to clarify for Mr. Linder regarding the gasoline local fuel tax that is specifically allocated for transportation. It cannot go into the general fund salary, general purpose.
Right. But
So it would make it would be a money
Get off
switch.
his RTA funds, that's all I was looking
Yeah,
at.
so we would take money out, we'd put money back in.
No, we understand that.
But that just clarification.
Yeah, we were just saying that we could reimburse the RTA under the motor fuel tax if we increase it for the 6.84 that we're taking out of transportation. It's an internal transfer.
I talked to Mr. Tepe about this and he said, don't say anything yet, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. So what we could also do is increase the disbursement of money from the RTA to public safety. And that would, I think it may double it, perhaps, because 10% of it goes into the general fund and then it's distributed right now accordingly. Take it all, increase the local fuel tax, they still would be made whole and we'd have more money coming in.
That's
With more taxes being
That's what you-
charged. to our
But
residents.
yeah, there'd be more taxes, sir,
what
absolutely.
DuPage is doing, right?
That is, that is
Theoretically,
exactly, that is exactly what
in round
DuPage is
numbers,
doing.
yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what DuPage is doing. So it's just another model to use.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two quick things. First of all, thank you, Mr. Tepe. Thank you, Mr. Leonard, for doing this. Somebody commented earlier about no partisan politics, and if this isn't a good example of us working across lines, I'm very pleased with that. But I'm also pleased that you guys were open to considering anything, but not proposing anything. Because that won't make sense. I mean, this just rings in my mind of clients who used to tell me, well, if I just spend money out of my 401k, I'm going to be okay. You know, it's like, well, can you see the future? Can you know what's going on? So I think that is a dangerous precedent for us to do, is to spend money that we may rely on, probably will rely on in the future. So thank you for giving us alternatives. And it's easier to spend less money than it is to spend money you don't have.
Mr. Chairman,
right.
Allen?
Mr. Tepe, is that complete your,
Debbie Allen.
Miss
oh,
Allen?
I'm sorry, Ms. Allen?
I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allen here. During these presentations, it was remarked on that transportation has a big balance and collects a lot of interest. And so some of that interest would be coming back into transportation, or all of that interest would be coming back into transportation. I'm just asking you to consider as we go forward that there are other entities. I'm going to suggest that maybe the sheriff's office, maybe the state's attorney's office, maybe court services also have large funds of money, also bringing in interest, and that interest should be considered when we look at their budgets. Thanks.
All right. Other comments? Well, thank you very much. I think I think we're on schedule. I think July is going to be a very important month for us. Very important meeting. I think we have to make the recommendations. We also have to make available to the executive committee and the full board as to what everything is. We can make our recommendations, but I think we need to have everything available for the board to decide on, not just what our recommendations as a finance committee. Everybody agree with that, or do you think that's?
Thank you, Mr.
We're gonna
Chair.
come up with our suggestions.
We'll continue.
Possibly as to what should be. But I think the board needs to have the opportunity to select from the whole gauntlet of,
Agree.
you know. Comments, okay, let's go on to our new business. We did approve our resolution for 25 claims funded. didn't we? Resolution A is authorizing the renewal of contract for toner cartridges, 10% renewal.
Leonard, so moves.
Tepe seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Berman.
Yes. B is a resolution approving the 2026 monthly health and dental contribution rates.
Surges move.
Burgess moves,
Steffi seconds.
second discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepi,
Steffi, yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Herman, yes? Resolution C, approving a transfer of appropriation and budget adjustment within fund number 558, North Impact Fees.
Steffi moves.
Happy moves.
Leonard seconds.
Second, discussion.
What is the North Impact? Fee?
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
I'm sorry, I don't know what the North Impact Fee is.
It's
For 3 sections.
It's one of the transportation's department's impact fee funds. Impact fees are charged to developers. This is the fee revenue for one of those. The county is divided into 3 areas, north, central, south.
Okay,
It's an additional revenue.
okay. Yes,
Got it?
moving it out. So
yes.
Very good, sir.
Tepi,
Steffi, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Passes.
D is a resolution authorizing the agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Homeless Management Information Systems Grant for program year 2025,
Sanchez moves.
$118,051. Sanchez moves,
Steffi seconds.
Deputy second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepi,
Steffi, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
passes.
E is a resolution ratifying emergency purchase affidavit for contractual services with MGT Impact Sources Solutions LLC for our workforce development fiscal manager position.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Steffi seconds.
Effie, discussion.
Um,
What fund does this come out of?
This is all fund 480, which is workforce. It's all state grant money.
Burgess?
I guess my question is, do we have an interim director that's on top of this right now? Are we doing this to supplement that person, or is this person asked for the additional support? I would like to hear from that individual and say what's going on with this.
Madam Chair?
Thank you. And is Jamie here, perhaps Jamie can be brought up and share why, because she's been pretty involved with all of this.
This position is a position that's been vacant for some time. Part of the struggles that we've had in that department is keeping this position filled with qualified individuals. So it has been vacant since January. It is a key position. So we got the interim director in place to try to assess, make sure we needed all the positions, make sure we had the right candidates in them. This has been open for, a little over a month. We have some candidates we're reviewing, but this department will slide behind again. All the work we've done to get it caught up will fail if we do not have someone working in this. So the candidate is a former county employee. She was a court services fiscal director for a significant period of time. So she's already very familiar with the county systems, can jump right in and help keep this caught up until we can bring on and onboard and train someone to take this position over. So we just really don't want to lose the knowledge that we have when we bring on a new person, and that someone can also help get them up to speed. So we have spent the last couple months trying to get this department caught up to the point where all our bills are caught up and paid, to keep these grant funds so that we don't lose them. It is an at-risk funding situation because of the fiscal situation there. And it is very critical that we maintain these services so that we don't lose that grant funding.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lou Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Tepi,
Steffi, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Herman. Passes.
F is a resolution authorizing budget adjustment to transfer funding from the Kane County Health Department to the Kane County State's Attorney's Office for Crisis Collaboration Liaison position.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Seconds.
second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Yes. H,
G.
oh, G, a resolution authorizing revision to the Kane County operating budget policy for emergency appropriations and transfers.
Juby
You
moves.
have a motion?
Leonard will move for discussion.
Juby seconds.
Give me a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I was wondering if someone could give us a brief summary of that. I have a pretty good knowledge of it, but I'd like specifically to know what this entails.
The state statute was amended for the emergency appropriation and budget transfer requirement. And so we're, since our county policies that we have in place adhere to the state statute, and since the state statute changed, we're just updating our policies. So the state statute essentially says that once you adopt a budget, any increase to that budget is considered an emergency appropriation and requires 2/3 vote of the board. That statute also says that any transfer between that touches either your personal services category of funds or your capital category of funds, any transfer that touches either of those categories, you need 2/3 vote of the county board. And the state statute was amended to add that this requirement applies to elected offices as well.
Thank you. And that state statute amendment was enacted last August, was
No, January 1st of 25.
Okay, good.
January 1st.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Pepe,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Yes. H is an ordinance. Reserve policy for general fund, general account. Judge, you want to make? We need a motion to approve.
Sanchez will move.
Second.
I'll second for
Are we
discussion.
getting tired?
Pepe, second.
Discussion. Oh, Ms. Juby?
So this is the third or fourth time we've seen this, and I'm going to reiterate the problems I had with it before. The last sentence, the now therefore be it ordained, just says that the Fund 001 would maintain a reserve of a minimum 3 months of operating expenditures. There's no language indicating that there should be some type of a variance for the 2 times in the year that we do not have that kind of money in there because we haven't gotten our property taxes yet. So if we were to put this ordinance in place, we would knowingly be in violation at least 2 times a year. So I was under the impression it was going to be changed. There's going to be modifications made in this to cover that. And I don't see them.
Discussion.
Mike?
Roll call.
Mr.
Thanks.
Chairman. So my problem with this is that we need a definition of when we can use these funds for emergencies. If this is a rainy day fund, which every reserve fund is, these floor funds, they are there strictly for the use during an emergency, but we should have a definition of that. Is it, if the building burns down, if there's a tornado, there's no use having money that if you lock it up and throw away the key. I'm done.
Oh, Mr. Sturgis.
Mr. Chair, I'm confused. What, Kathy, is this a housekeeping item that you need to come into compliance, or is this a major shift?
I think it's a major shift because it's an ordinance. The current, in our Kane County financial policies, it's our policy to maintain 90 days for the general fund, general account, but this is basically moving it up to an ordinance status. which would be then put into the King County Code.
Uh-huh. Deputy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tepe here. My concern about this is, I won't say it's meaningless, but there's no enforcement associated with this. And it's a matter of something that, we can change this policy anytime we want associated with it. So it just to me is, as I say, something essentially meaningless. We're like enforcing ourselves to do something with no repercussion associated with not following our own policy.
Mr. Roth.
When this came up before, we're trying to change it from a policy to an ordinance, which is just stricter. Well, Kathy just stated a few minutes ago, we're going to be in violation next year already. So why add more work to us than to override it to say, okay, it's okay. Our important thing, we need to spend our time on fixing permanently so we're not deficit spending all the time. And this is just going to complicate that. And one more thing on the pile to try to fix next year.
Well, we've already spent a great deal of time.
Exactly. And this is what, the second or third time attempt on it.
I think that
voted on.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Uh,
Madam Chair.
The one concern that I have, and with all respect to the board, is that we did have the 90-day policy as an aspiration. And when times got tough or not so tough and compensation wanted to get increased, it was willingly transferred over to the point that that is not the case. And I think it's very important for the board, whether or not this is as an ordinance or as a policy, really remains very, very disciplined. We see now, if you take a look at the report that Kathleen gave us, with no disrespect again to anybody, but you can see that there's several departments on that list that have increased their compensation from one year to another by several $1 million. And the board willingly said yes to that. So if the board doesn't say this is our budget and no more than, and this is the budget that is set forth by the 24 members, and allows it to go beyond that, they have to have very serious considerations of what happens to that 3 months. Because if something happens, or if when we get to April, there's not enough money in that reserve fund to pay salaries, at what point do we say, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to take a bond, which we have to then pay interest on to pay the salaries, further increasing our debt, which we have very low debt, or to take that money again out of reserves. And if it's taken out of that fund, then what are the plans to replenish that fund? I mean, what is a rainy day fund is a rainy day fund. What are the parameters on that? Because there has to be discipline on that to make sure that that doesn't trespass into bringing it down to the 401k where you don't have enough money.
Roth.
Well, and that's why it's critical we put some discipline into our budgeting. And we're going to have to look at expenses. I mean, so this, I think, is just adding another level of bureaucracy on top. I mean, we got to have the discipline to tighten our budget even more. I mean, asking for a 10%, that's going to save us 13.5, I think was the estimate I heard, and we're 29. So if we don't tighten more, we're just scotch taping the issue, and we're not fixing it. We got to look at how we can get it on the right track and not do deficit spending. 3 years ago, we had 95 million. We're now down to what, 50 million. We got to stop that. And so adding this isn't going to help that at all. We got to address the root cause, which is we're spending more than we're bringing in.
Mr. Sanchez.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I've expressed similar things to some of my colleagues here today, that this is a bit restrictive. I understand what it's trying to do. I think maybe there needs to be some language added to the now therefore be it ordained clause that would kind of express what parameters would allow that money to be spent so that that it's not just completely locked, that it's there when we do need it. But that, it's safeguarding us from ourselves using it when we shouldn't. I think that's the intention of this. So without that, I can't support it as it is. If there's any interest in postponing this to a later meeting to have some language worked on, I'd be happy to make that motion. But as it is, though, I think I agree it's restrictive and unnecessary.
Here's discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Surges,
No.
Tepe.
No,
I'm sorry, what was that?
no.
No, thank you. Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Berman,
Herman, no.
fails with 6 notes.
Oh, that's the end of that. Bill, resolution, revision of the Kane County financial policies regarding mass transit sales tax allocation. It's RTA.
Leonard moves.
Happy seconds.
Discussion,
Mr. Chair, I would like to make an amendment allowing this transfer for the budget years of 2026 and 2027.
I'll second that amendment.
you.
I'd like to almost have us review it every year.
Well, we could, but are you amending my amendment?
No.
No, yeah, I mean,
It'll be reviewed every year.
you want it reviewed every year, so I should make the amendment for this for the budget year of 2026. Okay. I
second
stand
it.
amended on my amendment.
Madam Chair?
I have no problem with the review, but how does that impact curiosity, the budgeting process for transportation? Because they do such long-term budgeting. Their budget goes out 5, 10 years. So if they don't have a defined amount and each year we're looking at they're going to get an increase or maybe a decrease, how does that impact their planning for their budgeting? Because their budget is different from just an annual budget. It's multi-year.
Leonard?
Madam Chair, I think the Transportation Department would much prefer to have an annual review than have it done permanently.
I'm just asking.
Discussion? Oh, we're better, we're
What'd I do?
putting on the amendment here.
On the amendment, Juby,
Juby, aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Yes,
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Herman, yes.
Passes
that's
with
the
1 note.
amendment. right?
Now,
Amendment, on
back
the
on the
amendment.
original motion. Any more discussion?
Can I just
Roll call, please.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Kathy.
clarified? So it would basically change the sentence in the second paragraph to say, now therefore be it resolved by the Kane County Board that for fiscal 26, the following policy language replaces. So just, yeah.
Okay. Why is it? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Surges,
No.
Tepe,
Yes,
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Herman, yes.
Passes 4 yeses, 2 nos.
Thank you.
Jay.
Item J.
Yes. Last
A
one.
resolution directing the use of the Consumer Price Index increase in the county budget process as addressed in the Kane County Board fiscal year 2026 budget policy.
Steppy moves.
Moves.
Juby, seconds.
To be second discussion. Juby, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Jared has a big head. Well,
A hand on a stick.
yeah, I need a hand on a stick. So I appreciate that you're bringing this into the budget process. I want people to consider when they vote for this to be used in the budget process, that even though it's not tying your hands to voting for it at the end of the year, it kind of is because we're budgeting on this. So please do not vote yes on this if you are not interested in actually voting yes on taking the CPI, because that will wipe out all the work that everybody did and will not be good. So this is probably the most difficult vote that we've had to take this meeting. And with that, I'm in support of it, but I just felt that I needed to share.
Sturgis.
While I fundamentally agree with Ms. Juby on this, you know, I just, while I'm looking at the budget process, I'm looking for those areas where we've contracted rather than just expanded revenues. And I'm not seeing the yin and yang here. I've not seen those things coming across saying, here's what we're willing to do. So to simply say, yes, we're going to increase the revenues without decreasing something on the spending side, I'm not comfortable with yet. And that's not to say that I would fundamentally be a no on this, but I'm a no right now without the other side of that. So.
Nice. Other discussion? No. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Surges,
No.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Berman.
No.
Fails with 2 yeses, 4 no.
Thank you very much. That is the end of our.
Mr. Chair,
business. New business.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Sanchez, just with a quick clarifying question. The ordinance and these 2 resolutions that we just voted on. Oh, can you not hear me?
Yeah.
I have a large head and a quiet voice.
And a small voice.
Strange combination of features. The ordinance and the 2 resolutions we just voted on, I do believe that they are things that the full board should be discussing. Is this just an advisory vote that we took here? It's still going to be moving forward, or are these killed in committee, so to speak? I don't know if this is a state's attorney question or if you know.
I agree.
If they are not passed, they can always be brought up to again here, or they can go to another standing committee, but they would still have to work their way through. And as with all things, the chairwoman also has the opportunity to bring it directly to either exec or county board if she so chooses.
Okay, thank you.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's unrelated to what we've been talking about, but I don't know if this is a state's attorney thing, but one of the things I appreciate about Madam Chair's introductions at the meeting where she's sitting up there is that she advises people that are going to be public speaking not to get into personal vindictiveness of people. And we saw that on 2 sides today. So I don't know if we could make something that could be read at the beginning, unfortunately, of every meeting where there's public comment. But, you know, somebody spent over 3 minutes trashing one employee and somebody else spent another bit of time trashing a different person. And I don't think that's what we should permit. So it's tough to do that sitting up there. Madam Chair, I think you've done a good job when somebody gets off the rails a little bit, but unfortunately, I think we could help people be a little more civil when they get into that.
Sturgis?
John, if I could, Mr. Chair, if I can direct to John, I have had several conversations with Madam Chair over the past year or so or 2. If you ever have the opportunity to attend a zoning hearing, it is take no prisoners. It is, this is what you are allowed to discuss. It is stay pinpoint to your topic. Yet, you know, this hypercriticism of individuals, I don't know that that's what this is intended to do. And if it is, I apologize. I stand down. But if it's not, we seem to have a body that works directly under us that is much more concise than we operate here. And it gets a little bit, I don't understand. If we have a set of rules for that committee, that should also follow through to this committee. And it seems like we're a little bit off base on that. So.
It is.
Well,
I was directed by counsel that the public has allowed the opportunity for free speech. And it's free speech as long as they stay within the time frame that we have submitted, 3 minutes, then they can pretty much broach the topics that they so choose because of free speech. So as much as I would appreciate just staying to the topic at hand on an agenda, we have I was told, no authority to manage that at all, that they are allowed to express their personal opinions.
John?
So that is largely correct with one small caveat. You cannot get out of decorum. So we can't regulate content, but we can regulate kind of the formatting. So that's why you can regulate the amount of time they get and stuff like that, but you can't regulate the content as long as it's not getting into realms of abuse and that kind of stuff. So I will admit this question comes up a lot as it relates to staff. I will tell you, as government employees, all the way down any position you have in the county, you are subject to the public's criticism. So, there's a pro and con to being a government employee, and that's that push and pull. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with making a suggestion at the beginning. It just can't be mandated upon them. But if they get out of decorum, like yelling, screaming, going past the 3 minutes, stuff like that, they can be removed.
Very good. Anything else then? Moving on. Reports placed on file.
Leonard so moves. For unanimous consent.
We have unanimous consent. Place reports on file. Everybody approve? Good. Reports will be placed on file by unanimous consent. Committee chairman's comments. I think our budget process is on the right track. I think we're all working towards a common solution. I think every member of this committee has had an opportunity to speak, an opportunity to give their point of view on everything. And maybe we don't agree on everything, but we certainly haven't. It's our we need to make a recommendation to the board, but the truth of the matter is the board needs to have all the information that we have to make their decisions. And so it's very difficult for us to say, okay, the 7 of us decide this is what we want, but 24 feel something differently. So we've seen this in the past. I think we need to be cognizant of it happening in the future. Another item, it certainly has been suggested that I resign as chairman of this committee. It's been published and whatever. I have no intentions of resigning as chairman of this committee. As long as my current health position allows me to be here at a meeting, I will be here. Unless this committee decides they want somebody else. So that's all I have to say.
Very good.
Executive session? No?
Did you want one?
No, it's past my bedtime. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.